Okay, let's dive right into one of the most captivating mysteries of human history. Today in this explainer, we're exploring a tale that has absolutely gripped our collective imagination for over 2 millennia. It's a story that blends a deeply emotional human tragedy with a profound philosophical lesson that honestly we can still use today. Just imagine it, a thriving, highly advanced society disappearing entirely beneath the ocean. We're talking about a civilization that supposedly left absolutely no ruins and no confirmed bodies behind. It's like the island literally vanished from the historical record, leaving behind this echoing absence that feels both tragic and, profoundly mysterious. And the historical accounts? They say it happened in a flash. No warning came, no one escaped. In a single day and a single night, literally in less time than it takes to get through this explainer, they were wiped from history by the very next sunrise. The sheer emotional weight of a disaster that absolute it's hard to fully process. Naturally, for centuries, people have dismissed this as nothing more than a legend, a tale too incredible to be true, right? But what if it wasn't? What if a real, sudden devastation actually inspired this unforgettable tale? Well, to answer that, we've got to trace this story back to its very origin. Section 1, Plato's Purposeful Story, the philosopher behind the legend. So, to figure out the truth of Atlantis, we first need to look at the man who gave us the story, the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, who was writing around 360 BCE. Born around 428 BCE, he lived during a time of intense political turmoil. As a young man, he was a student of Socrates. And when Athens tragically sentenced Socrates to death, it deeply shaped Plato's focus on justice, government, and the extreme dangers of corruption. He eventually went on to found the Academy, teach Aristotle, and explore the nature of reality itself. And the Atlantis story specifically appears in two of his famous dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. Now here's the thing. Most historians believe Plato never meant for Atlantis to be literal history. Instead, they see it as an allegory, an incredibly detailed fictional story specifically designed to teach an important moral or philosophical lesson to his students. This is where the Atlantis myth serves its true utility. Rather than just presenting dry, boring political arguments, Plato used a vivid, emotional story to teach a powerful lesson about the dangers of unchecked power. And this brilliantly illustrates his point, because he created the ultimate contrast. He pitted the arrogant, greed-consumed, and ridiculously wealthy empire of Atlantis against his idealized, highly disciplined, and virtuous vision of ancient Athens. When you think about it, that contrast was the absolute perfect teaching tool. Section 2. A utopian engineering marvel, the golden age of Atlantis. Now, to make his cautionary tale actually work, Plato had to build Atlantis into a civilization of unimaginable awe. According to the story, it all started with Poseidon, the god of the sea. He fell in love with a mortal woman named Clito, and to protect her, he engineered an impenetrable masterpiece. Just picture the sheer scale of this design for a second. Massive concentric rings of land and water connected by enormous bridges and wide canals. It was an absolute marvel of ancient urban planning that welcomed merchant ships and global trade right into its bustling heart. And the sheer wealth he described was staggering. The central temple dedicated to Poseidon was literally clad in precious metals. But notice the strange material listed at the end there. Orichalcum. This was described as a mysterious, glowing, reddish metal said to be even more valuable than gold. Inside that temple sat an enormous golden statue of Poseidon, driving a chariot pulled by 6 winged horses. I mean, talk about opulence. But beyond its incredible wealth, Atlantis was a terrifying military superpower. 10,000. That number represents just a fraction of their might in chariots alone, standing alongside countless soldiers and a massive navy that completely dominated the surrounding seas. Yet despite this overwhelming power, they were peacefully governed. 10 kings, descendants of Poseidon and Clito's 10 sons, led by the eldest, Atlas, actually ruled together. They shared a strict code of laws permanently carved into a pillar of that glowing orichalcum. For generations, they valued honor and wisdom far above conquest. Honestly, it seemed like a utopia destined to last forever. Section 3. The Price of Arrogance. A civilization corrupted. So here is the crucial point for us to think about. How does a civilization this powerful and honorable suddenly collapse? Well, generation after generation, the royal family intermarried with ordinary mortals. And as they did, Plato tells us that Poseidon's divine influence slowly faded away. That pure virtue was gradually replaced by a really dangerous ambition. Power brought confidence, confidence became arrogance, and finally it devolved into an absolute obsession with domination and unchecked greed. This greed led the Atlantean armies to march across neighboring lands, just conquering everything in their path. They seemed completely unstoppable. That is, until they met ancient Athens. Even with far less wealth and way fewer soldiers, the virtuous Athenians refused to surrender. Against truly overwhelming odds, they defeated Atlantis and halted the invasion dead in its tracks. But Plato's ultimate lesson, the real utility of this whole story, is right here. The military defeat wasn't the real downfall. The empire had already crumbled from within. Atlantis was not destroyed because its physical walls failed. It was destroyed because its character failed. Leaders who once protected their people had become entirely corrupted. And then the story builds to a truly terrifying climax. Zeus, witnessing all this corruption, summons the gods for judgment. Now, while Plato's mean dialogue, Critias, actually cuts off right at this exact moment, another passage gives us the grim finale. Violent earthquakes struck without warning. The ground shook, buildings collapsed, and then massive floods overwhelmed the island. In just a single day and night, the entire civilization vanished completely. Section 4. Hunting for real evidence. Myth or missing history? Which brings us to the modern day. Because of the exact measurements and locations Plato included, explorers have spent 2,000 years asking if this dramatic end was actually based on real geological events. And looking at the data, we have 3 fascinating scientific theories that try to connect this legendary disaster to reality. First, there's the Minoan eruption on Santorini around 1600 BCE, which caused massive tsunamis. Though, to be fair, the location doesn't exactly match Plato's text. Second, the end of the Ice Age, where melting glaciers flooded coastal communities globally. But that predates Plato by thousands of years. Finally, the reach-out structure, or the Eye of the Sahara, which features concentric rings just like Plato described. But most geologists confidently say that's just a natural coincidence. Yet, despite our most advanced tools, we're talking decades of deep-sea expeditions, cutting-edge satellite surveys, and endless archaeological digging, we haven't found a single piece of conclusive proof tying any of these sites to Atlantis. Literally 0 confirmed ruins. Section 5. History's greatest unsolved mystery, the legacy of Atlantis. So we're left at this incredible crossroads. We have to wonder if this was an exaggerated oral history of a real, tragic disaster that wiped out thousands of lives in an instant, or simply a brilliant masterclass in philosophical storytelling about the dangers of unchecked power and greed. Either way, the emotional resonance of a lost utopia is exactly why this mystery has survived for more than 2,000 years. So I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. Is Atlantis strictly a cautionary myth designed to teach us how to govern ourselves? Or is the absolute greatest archaeological discovery in human history still sitting in the dark at the very bottom of the ocean, waiting to be found?